Today I want to try something a bit different. I'm going to record myself while I work on an aspect of my family history. And hopefully you and I will learn together as we do this. What I thought I would do is pick a particular family history problem and brainstorm it a little bit and talk about my thought processes as I do that. It's not going to be an actual solving a family history uh, problem relating to a person. It's more relating to the management of family history, because one of the important things that I always like to talk about is improving the quality of your family history. And that means that you need to manage your data as well. So the problem that I chose, if it's going to let me paste it, is that I don't back up my family history very often. Now, I suspect that I'm not the only one that has this problem. So, trying to find a workable solution to this problem may very well help a lot of other people as well. But the process of solving a family history problem is at first you need to define the problem clearly. Now, I don't back up my family history very often, is the problem, but it's not really defined clearly enough to actually solve that problem. So we need to analyse that problem a bit. So why don't I back up my family history very often? Now, some of the reasons that I don't do that is that I've been researching for a very long time and I have a lot of files. It's hard to type while I'm talking, so let's just stop for a moment. I have a lot of files, very large. So one of the reasons that stops me from backing up frequently is that I have a lot of files because I've been researching for decades. The files are very large, particularly when you've got lots of images. It takes a really long time to back up. So the idea of doing that, once a week or whatever, manually, just keeps putting me off. Not a very good excuse because I know there are solutions to that problem, but I'm being honest about why I don't always do it. The other problem that stops me from backing them up very often is because I have a lot of files. Where are they? I've got all these files all over the place, even though I'm pretty well organized. Where are the files that need to be backed up? Which files need to be backed up? Which files are the priority for backing up? So those things are important to consider when you're defining your problem a bit more clearly. Just going to highlight those so they stand out. So the next key issue is, well, if you've obviously got a lot of problems in your family history, why do you need to spend time on solving this particular problem? Now, if you don't back up your family history, you risk losing your family history research. And I certainly had that problem one Christmas night when there was a lightning storm and the motherboard in my computer got fried and I no longer had access to my computer. So I was able to recover those files, but it just gives you an example of, you don't always have control over what will happen to your research. And if you've been researching for a long time, you don't want to lose all this research. So risk losing the research is very significant to me, both in terms of the time that would have been lost, all those decades of research, and also the emotional connection if you lose things like photographs or recordings of your family, those sorts of things. So it's a big problem, and it's also a very important problem to solve. And there's some of the questions that you need to ask when you're looking at family history problems. So if we say that the analysis of the problem says we have a lot of files, we're not sure where they are, and we're not sure which files are the priority, the first step we might take is to inventory the files. So what is your family history? What needs to be backed up? Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down a bit so we can see an inventory of everything that comprises my family history. You'll be surprised when you run through this exercise. I've done it in my head. I haven't done it on paper yet. So clearly I have my family history software. I have, oh, it's not going to do me a numbered system. Let me see. No, it's not going to let me format it. Okay, now it is. Family history software, we have online family trees. Notice I put plural because I have more than one. What else makes up my family history? I've got my digital files, which includes photos, documents, videos. So it's different formats. Then I've got some paper files, unfortunately, still. Similarly, it could be photos, documents, copies of sources, or actual original sources in some cases. What else is part of my family history? I have a website, so I've got my blog. My family history blog has articles about my family history on there. What else? Books. I guess some of my family history is reflected in books. I've written a book, but it's not about my family history. But some of you may have written books about your family history. So I would put any written by me, because in the future I may have some, written by others. So I have got books that other people have written about certain people in my family. So they're part of my family history. Now, again, books could be paper format, they could be digital format, they could be ebooks. Yep. What else is part of your family history? I kind of talked about it when I was looking at paper files, but it would be objects. Let's say objects. So you might have photos, paintings, jewelry. Yes, I do have some jewelry of my mother's. Any other sort of objects that have been handed down, furniture, homeware, clothing. Trying to think, brainstorm here a bit. What makes up your family history? What have I left out? I've got my software, my trees, my digital files, my paper files, my blog, my books, my objects. Let's go with those for now. I think the important thing is here that brainstorming step before you solve a problem. You can see when you think about your family history and you're thinking about backing up your family history, we tend to focus on this first one, the family history software. And I know certainly that's the one that I normally prioritize. And then probably number 3 is the second one, my digital files. I'm not as good at backing up the rest of those. So then it comes to, well, backing up, we think of backing up digital and paper files. But you can see from this list of what makes up my family history is it's not just about that digital backup process, it's also about preservation. So it's backup and preservation, which is the real issue. because you don't back up books, you don't back up objects, but you do preserve them. So backing up and preservation are part of the same management task, depending on what aspect or what format of your family history you're trying to take care of. Let's break this down even further, because I need to get a better idea of the nature of each of these things so I can work out how I'm going to back them up. So let's just look at family history software, for example. Now, everyone uses different family history software. I use Legacy Family Tree. It used to, for a time, it used to allow us to back up to the cloud. It no longer does that, but some family history, Family Tree Maker, I think, gives you an option of backing up to the cloud. So if you've got that option, that would be something that you could utilize, but I don't have that. The other thing I need to know is what is the nature of the files that need to be backed up. What format are they in? What options are available for backing up? Now, Legacy Family Tree actually produces two files. So you need to make sure that you back up both of them. So there's the main file and then this media file. So it's important when you're looking at backing up something that you understand the nature of the files that are available and how many files you're actually looking for. Then getting on to online family trees. Like a lot of people, I have more than one. So you need, before you can back up adequately, you need to know how many trees you've got. Where are they? So I've got a family tree on Ancestry. I've got one on My Heritage. I've got one on Find My Past. So let's just put those quickly. Ancestry, My Heritage, Find My Past. I've also got trees that are on collaborative trees. So collaborative, we've got WikiTree and Family Search. Now, I mention those because they don't actually need to be backed up by you because someone else manages them. But in some ways, they are actually a way of preserving your family history. So if you're worried about a tree on one of these other sites disappearing, putting it onto WikiTree, for example, is one way of backing it up or preserving your research. So that's a good option to investigate. And I certainly do try to put a lot of mine onto WikiTree. The basic information, I don't necessarily put all of the information. I probably should also mention here, in terms of prioritizing this, the family history software is my master tree. So you need to be sure, where is your master tree? My master tree meaning that it's the one that I focus on, that's the most complete, that's got most of the information, and the others are all extracts or just partial trees. So if I was prioritizing backing up, this would be the one that I would need to prioritize. Now, online family trees, again, you need to think about, is it important that they all be backed up? If you have your master tree on family history software as I do, then perhaps you don't actually need to back up these other ones. If, however, your master tree is on one of these sites, then that would be your priority. But for me, it's not, so I'm just marking my family history software tree as my priority for backup. Now, the other thing is that, like other people, I do research for other uh, people other than myself. So it's not just my family tree, it's other people's family trees as well. And again, I would need to look at where they are. I've got them in family history software, or I've got them on Ancestry, or do I have them on both, and which ones need to be backed up. So there's some of the considerations. I'm obviously not going to solve this problem today, but it's showing you how you work through the problem. Now, the digital files, let's examine those for a bit. I have been researching for decades, so I have got a lot of digital files, but I'm also pretty organized with my digital files. So I do have dedicated folders for my family history. So I know exactly which folders would need to be backed up. It's just that there's so many of them. The size and number is the problem. Now, for those of us who have been researching for decades, there are a lot of files in there which are probably useless now, that have been replaced by more recent research. So just like you need to go through your house and declutter, I think it's important to declutter your family history. And I think that would be a good step for me before I start backing up again. So if I can reduce the number of files and then focus on the ones that are really important to back up, that will solve part of my problem. So I would declutter, but I also think transferring some of that information to my family history software. Transferring. So that's another solution to reduce the amount of files that need to be backed up. If I transfer as much of that information to my family history software, it then gets backed up when I back up my family history database. So everybody will have different issues with their digital files. If you're not already organized and you don't have all your family history files in a single folder, which is then subdivided into subfolders, then that might be something that you would look into as a solution for your backup problems. You might have similar problems or face similar problems to myself in terms of the number of them, and you might want to declutter and transfer information to your family history software. What's the next one? Paper files. So the usual solution to having lots of paper files is to scan and digitize, because that makes them easier to back up. So I'm going to put that down as a task for me. Scan all my photos, which I keep starting and never finish. So I need to set up a schedule so that I can work my way through all my photos. Some of you may have sources also, such as certificates and things that you got in paper format. I have already scanned all those, so I'm not going to put that down as an issue that I need to address. But certainly scanning all the photos. What else have I got? Copies of sources, original sources. There might be some others that I need to scan. And then they would go to my family history folder as digital files. So then when I back up my digital files, they would get backed up. Okay, what else have we got? My blog. The issue with my blog is I write family history, I write articles about my family history. The issue is that the word versions, when I'm writing those articles, are not saved in my family history folder. They're saved somewhere else on my computer. So I need a process for archiving, I guess, articles. I have actually started this process using Claude Cowork. I got Claude to download all of my blog articles, and we are currently setting up folders and a inventory of all my articles in an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to put that down as part of the solution to my problem. AI download of articles, create inventory and digital folder. Then I just need to incorporate that into my backup system to make sure that folder gets backed up as well. Maybe I need to move it into the family history folder so that it gets backed up at the same time. Books. They're a bit harder to, well, books are harder to back up, but they're probably not as important to back up because if published, then you could always get another copy, or you could view it in a library or something like that. So if published, there is always another copy. But you really need an inventory. Again, you need an inventory of what books you have so that you know if you lose one that you know the details so that you can find it again. So I think that's another task which I've started and never finished, which is to inventory all of my books. And I know maybe that's something that I can get AI to help me with as well. People have said that you can take a photograph of your bookshelf and AI can interpret what's on them. So I might experiment with that to see if AI can produce an inventory from a photograph of bookshelves. We're getting there through these problems. Objects. That's another big topic, actually, the preservation of objects. Maybe we could look at that in another video or a blog article at some point. So there's a whole process for preserving objects. I need to look at preservation options, but the first thing would be to take photos and create an inventory. We're going to have lots of inventories here, but knowing exactly what is comprising your family history in these various inventories is what's going to help you with backing them up. Inventories using best practice for object description. So there are object description processes that museums and places like that use, and we can use that in the inventory. So it's not just saying this is mum's ring. You would have a description using these standards of how you describe the ring, what it's made of, how big it is, how old it is, what it means to you, all those sorts of things. And they all help you with your decisions about backing up and preservation. So this process has not solved the problem, but it's moved me towards solving the problem. So I hope that this has been useful, and maybe I will come back when I have actually come up with all the options that I'm going to use to implement to solve the problem.